The alien diplomatic ship was small compared to their warships. It approached Earth slowly, broadcasting peaceful intentions on every frequency. Human defense forces tracked it carefully, weapons ready. Nobody trusted the aliens, but Captain Jiwoo recommended allowing them to approach. If they wanted to talk, humanity would listen. But they would listen with guns pointed at the aliens' heads. The meeting took place on a neutral station orbiting Earth. The humans sent a delegation led by military officers. Captain Jiwoo was there, representing the fleet. Dr. Hana Park attended as the science advisor. Ambassador Sung Min, who had resigned in protest earlier, was asked to return. Despite his earlier doubts, he was still their most experienced diplomat. He agreed to come back, though he looked tired and old. The aliens who came to negotiate were different from the crew members Yuna had fought. These were diplomats, tall and elegant in elaborate robes. They spoke through translation devices in perfect human languages. They were polite, almost deferential. It was a stark contrast to their earlier ultimatums demanding surrender. The lead alien diplomat introduced himself with a name that humans could not pronounce. He said he represented the Krath Dominion, an empire that spanned thousands of star systems. He said his government regretted the misunderstanding between their species. He offered peace, trade agreements, technology exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. Captain Jiwoo listened to the flowery words and felt anger building inside her. Misunderstanding? They had demanded humanity's unconditional surrender. They had destroyed Mars Colony Alpha, killing 2 million people. They had tried to exterminate the human race. And now they called it a misunderstanding? She interrupted the alien diplomat. She asked him directly what had changed. Why were they offering peace now when before they had demanded submission? The alien seemed uncomfortable with her directness. He gave vague answers about recognizing humanity's warrior spirit and sovereign rights. But Jiwoo pressed harder. She wanted the truth. Finally, the alien admitted the real reason. The Krath Dominion had suffered an embarrassing defeat. Their expeditionary force, which was supposed to easily conquer a primitive species, had been badly damaged. More importantly, word of their failure was spreading. Other species under Krath control were hearing about humanity's resistance. Some were beginning to question whether they needed to remain under Krath rule. The Krath were afraid, not afraid that humanity would destroy them, but afraid of what humanity represented. They were afraid that humanity's example would inspire rebellion across their empire. It was better to make peace with humans than to fight a long war that might destabilize everything they had built. Dr. Hana understood immediately. The Krath Empire was not held together by military might alone. It was held together by the belief that resistance was futile. Every species in the empire believed the Krath were unbeatable. But humanity had proven that was a lie. The Krath could be hurt. They could be forced to retreat. And if humans could do it, maybe others could too. The negotiations continued for days. The humans made their position clear. They would accept peace, but only on their terms. The Krath would recognize human sovereignty over the entire solar system. They would provide compensation for the Mars colony destruction. They would share technology to help humanity defend themselves. And most importantly, the Krath would never threaten humanity again. The aliens agreed to all the terms. They had no choice. Continuing the war would cost them too much, not in ships and soldiers, but in prestige and control. They signed the treaty and withdrew their remaining fleet from the solar system. Humanity had won not just a battle, but diplomatic recognition as an independent power. But Captain Jiwoo was not celebrating. She understood what the aliens did not want to admit. They were not being generous. They were being strategic. They were giving humanity time to grow stronger, but they were also watching. If humanity became too powerful, too threatening, they might return with overwhelming force. The peace was real, but it was also fragile. She told the military council this truth. Humanity could not relax. They had one breathing room, nothing more. They needed to use this time wisely, build more ships, develop better weapons, learn from the alien technology they had captured, prepare for the day when the Krath or some other threat might return. The council agreed. The war had changed humanity forever. They could not go back to being peaceful explorers. They had learned that the galaxy was dangerous. They had learned that other species would try to conquer them if given the chance. They had to remain strong. They had to remain vigilant. Dr. Hana led a massive effort to study the captured alien technology. She had teams working around the clock to understand how alien shields, engines, and weapons functioned. It would take years, maybe decades, to truly match Krath technology, but every piece of knowledge they gained made humanity stronger. Every advancement closed the gap between human and alien capabilities. Lieutenant Yuna Han helped establish the Solar Defense Academy. It was a new military school dedicated to training the next generation of warriors. Students learned not just how to operate ships and weapons, but how to think like soldiers, how to make hard decisions, how to sacrifice for something greater than themselves. Yuna taught hand-to-hand combat and boarding tactics. She made sure every student understood what real fighting meant. Ambassador Sung-min worked to establish diplomatic relations with other species. The Krath Empire controlled thousands of worlds, but there were also independent species and minor powers. Sung-min reached out to them carefully. He found that many were interested in humanity. Some saw humans as potential allies. Others saw them as dangerous unknowns. But all of them watched with interest. Humanity had become a symbol. For some species, they represented hope, proof that the great empires could be resisted. For others, they represented chaos, a dangerous element that might upset the established order. But nobody could ignore them. The species that had been helpless and primitive just months ago was now a recognized power. 5 years passed. 5 years of building and preparing. 5 years of peace, but peace with purpose. The solar system was transformed. Mars was being rebuilt stronger than before. New shipyards orbited Earth and the Moon, producing warships. The asteroid belt was a fortress protected by weapons and defensive stations. Humanity had not wasted their opportunity. On the 5th anniversary of Captain Daeho's sacrifice, humanity launched its first true warship. Not a converted civilian vessel, but a ship designed from the beginning for combat. It was large and powerful, incorporating both human ingenuity and adapted alien technology. It represented everything humanity had learned from the war. They named the ship the Daeho, honoring the captain who refused to surrender. Captain Jiwoo was given command. It was fitting. She had been his student, and now she would carry on his legacy. The ship's mission was to patrol beyond the solar system, to explore and to protect, to show the galaxy that humanity was no longer helpless. On the Daeho's maiden voyage, Jiwoo took the ship to the edge of the solar system, to the place where the Krath fleet had first appeared 5 years ago. She stood on the bridge and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there were the Krath watching and waiting. Somewhere out there were other species, other threats, other possibilities. Dr. Hana sent a message to the Daeho as it passed beyond the heliopause. She said she was proud of what they had accomplished. She said that Captain Daeho would be proud too. She reminded Jiwoo that humanity's strength was not just in their weapons, but in their refusal to give up. That was the lesson of the war. Humans do not surrender. Lieutenant Yuna, now a major training the next generation, watched the launch on screens at the academy. She thought about how much had changed. She had been a simple private on a transport ship when the aliens arrived. Now she was shaping the warriors who would defend humanity for decades to come. The fire that had been lit in her during those dark days still burned bright. Ambassador Sung-min, now quite old, gave a speech on Earth that day. He talked about how he had once advocated for surrender. He admitted he had been wrong. He said he had learned that some things are worth fighting for, that freedom cannot be negotiated away, that humanity's survival depended not on the mercy of others, but on their own strength and determination. Captain Jiwoo addressed her crew as the Daeho crossed into interstellar space. She told them they were making history. They were the first humans to travel beyond their home system as equals, not as primitives begging for scraps. She told them that their mission was to show the galaxy what humanity had become, a species that would not be conquered, a species that would not be intimidated, a species that fought for their freedom. The galaxy was vast and old. It was full of species that had civilizations when humans were still living in caves. It was full of empires that controlled thousands of worlds. It was full of dangers that humanity did not yet understand. But it was also full of possibilities, and humanity was ready to face whatever came. The Krath invasion had been meant to end human independence. It was supposed to be a simple conquest of primitives, but it had become something else. It had become the moment when humanity proved they belonged among the stars. Not as servants or subjects, but as equals, as warriors, as survivors. The alien fleet entered the asteroid belt in force. More than 300 ships advanced in a careful formation. They had learned from the first battle. They maintained defensive positions. Their shields were adjusted to handle kinetic weapons better. They scanned constantly for hidden threats. They would not be surprised again. Captain Jiwoo watched them come from her command ship. Her fleet was much smaller, maybe 70 vessels total, and most of those were converted civilian ships. Against the alien armada, it looked hopeless, but Jiwoo was not trying to win a straight fight. She was trying to lure the aliens into a trap. The human fleet engaged the aliens at the edge of the belt. They attacked with missiles and railgun fire, then immediately retreated. They made it look desperate. They made it look like they were running away in panic. The aliens pursued, confident in their overwhelming strength. They pushed deeper into the asteroid field, chasing the human ships. This was exactly what Jiwoo wanted. For weeks, humans had been preparing the belt. Thousands of asteroids had been fitted with engines and explosives. Millions of mines had been scattered through the rocks. Hidden weapon platforms waited in the shadows of larger asteroids. And all of it was controlled remotely, waiting for the signal to activate. The alien fleet spread out as they advanced through the belt. The asteroids forced them to break their tight formations. Ships had to navigate around obstacles. Their perfect geometric patterns became ragged and scattered. They were still powerful, but they were no longer coordinated. Captain Jiwoo waited until the aliens were deep in the belt. She waited until they were surrounded by asteroids. She waited until they were committed. Then she gave the order. Every hidden weapon activated at once. It was chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos. Thousands of asteroids suddenly came to life. Their engines fired, accelerating them toward alien ships. Some asteroids were small, only a few meters across. Others were massive, hundreds of meters in diameter. All of them were moving fast and getting faster. The aliens detected them, but there were too many. Their targeting computers could not track everything at once. Explosions filled the belt. Alien ships tried to destroy the incoming asteroids, but every one they destroyed created a cloud of deadly debris. The debris struck other ships, damaging shields and hulls. The aliens tried to retreat, but more asteroids blocked their path. Mines hidden among the rocks detonated as ships passed, crippling engines and weapons. Hidden weapon platforms opened fire from concealment. Railgun slugs and missiles struck alien vessels from unexpected angles. The aliens could not maintain formation. Ships collided with asteroids in their panic to escape. Their superior technology meant nothing in this environment. Their advanced sensors were overwhelmed by too many targets. Their precise tactics were useless in the chaos. The human fleet, which had been retreating, suddenly reversed course. They attacked the confused and scattered aliens with everything they had. Captain Jiwoo led the assault personally. Her ship dove through clouds of debris, firing at every opportunity. Her crew worked with desperate efficiency. They knew this was their only chance. Human ships rammed damaged alien vessels. When ammunition ran out, they used their ships as weapons. Captains pointed their vessels at enemy targets and fired their engines to maximum. These suicide attacks destroyed both ships, but humans were willing to trade one for one. The aliens were not. They had never had to sacrifice themselves before. In the middle of the battle, Private Yuna Han and her boarding team launched from their transport. Their target was a damaged alien command ship. The ship had lost shields and was venting atmosphere from several hull breaches. It was still dangerous, but it was vulnerable. This was the opportunity Dr. Hana had been waiting for. The boarding craft approached under cover of the chaos. Debris and explosions filled the space around the alien ship, masking the small craft's approach. They docked at one of the hull breaches. Yuna was first through the airlock. She led her team of 12 Marines into the alien vessel. The interior of the alien ship was strange. The corridors were too wide and too tall. The gravity was lighter than Earth normal. Strange lights pulsed in the walls. The air smelled wrong, full of chemicals that made them dizzy. But the Marines pushed forward. They had studied the limited information about alien ship layouts. They knew roughly where the command center should be. They encountered alien crew members in the corridors. The aliens were tall and thin with gray skin and large eyes. They wore what looked like environmental suits. When they saw the humans, they seemed shocked. They reached for weapons, but they were slow. Yuna and her Marines were faster. They had trained for this. They had prepared for close-quarters combat. The fight was brutal but brief. The aliens were not soldiers. They were technicians and officers who had never experienced ground combat. Their weapons were unfamiliar and awkward in their hands. The human Marines, by contrast, fought with savage efficiency. They moved through the ship like a knife, cutting down any resistance. Half of Yuna's team died reaching the command center. They were killed by automated defenses and a few determined aliens who fought back. But the survivors made it. They breached the command center door with explosives and rushed inside. Yuna shot 3 aliens before they could activate some kind of self-destruct. The remaining aliens surrendered, their hands raised in a gesture that was universal. Dr. Hana was in communication with Yuna through the entire operation. She guided the Marine to the ship's computer systems. Yuna did not understand the alien technology, but Hana talked her through connecting a human interface device. It took precious minutes. Minutes during which the ship shuddered from impacts. Minutes during which Yuna expected the hull to breach and kill them all. But the device worked. It connected. Data began flowing from the alien computer to the human systems. Communications codes, fleet positions, even information about alien culture and history. It was a treasure trove of intelligence. More valuable than destroying 100 ships. This information could change the war. Yuna ordered her team to retreat. They grabbed the alien prisoners and fought their way back to their boarding craft. Behind them, the alien ship was dying. Internal explosions tore through the vessel. They barely made it to their craft before the ship broke apart completely. As they pulled away, the command ship exploded, sending debris in all directions. The Battle of the Belt raged for 6 hours. It was the most intense combat in human history. When it finally ended, the human victory was clear but costly. More than half the human fleet was destroyed. Thousands of brave men and women died. But they had achieved something remarkable. They had forced the alien fleet to retreat. The aliens lost over 80 ships destroyed and another 50 damaged. It was a catastrophic defeat for them. An expeditionary force that was supposed to easily conquer primitives had been mauled. The survivors fled beyond the belt, regrouping at the edge of the solar system. They would not advance again without reinforcements. Captain Jiwoo's flagship was heavily damaged but still flying. She watched the aliens retreat and allowed herself a moment of exhaustion. They had won. Against impossible odds with inferior technology, humanity had won a major battle. She thought of Captain Daeho. He would have been proud. Dr. Hana analyzed the data that Yuna had stolen. What she found was shocking. The aliens were not the unstoppable conquerors everyone believed. They were administrators of a vast empire, yes, but they were not warriors. They had conquered hundreds of species, but almost all had surrendered without fighting. The few that resisted were crushed by numbers, not by superior tactics. The alien empire, Hana discovered, was built on fear and intimidation. They would arrive at a primitive world with overwhelming force. The primitives would see the massive fleet and surrender immediately. It had worked for thousands of years, but it required that the primitives actually surrendered. If they fought back, if they were willing to sacrifice everything, the system broke down. Humanity had broken the system. They had refused to surrender. They had fought with such ferocity that the aliens were genuinely afraid. The data showed that the alien command was in chaos. They did not know how to handle a species that preferred death to submission. They were debating whether to send more ships or to simply leave humanity alone. Private Yuna Han, bloodied and exhausted, was hailed as a hero. She had led the most successful boarding action in the battle. She had captured critical intelligence that could help humanity survive. She was promoted to lieutenant and given command of her own special operations unit. She accepted the promotion quietly. She did not feel like a hero. She just felt tired. 3 days after the battle, something unexpected happened. An alien ship approached under a white flag, the universal symbol for truce. The aliens wanted to talk. They wanted to negotiate. After trying to exterminate humanity, after killing millions, they now wanted to negotiate. Captain Jiwoo smiled grimly when she heard the news. The aliens had finally learned what humans had known all along. Some species cannot be conquered. Some species will fight until the end. And humanity was one of those species. The news of Captain Daeho's attack spread across the solar system within hours. At first, people did not believe it. 7 small ships had attacked the alien fleet. It seemed like madness. But then the recordings came. Video from escape pods and distant sensors showed the battle. They showed human ships destroying alien vessels. They showed Captain Daeho ramming his dying ship into an alien battleship. Everything changed. The fear that had paralyzed humanity began to transform into something else. Anger, determination, pride. One man had refused to surrender. One captain and his small group of rebels had shown that the aliens could be hurt. If 7 ships could damage 20 alien vessels, what could the whole human fleet do? Ambassador Sung Min tried to maintain his position. He argued that the attack was a tragic mistake. He said it would only make the aliens angrier. He urged people to remain calm and still prepare for surrender. But nobody was listening to him anymore. The mood had shifted. People were no longer willing to give up without a fight. The Solar Defense Council held an emergency meeting. Half the council members had changed their minds. They no longer wanted to surrender. They wanted to fight. The arguments went on for hours. Finally, a vote was taken. The decision was made. Humanity would resist. They would prepare for war. Ambassador Sung Min resigned in protest. He believed they were making a terrible mistake. He thought they were dooming humanity to extinction. But he was wrong. He did not understand what Captain Dae-ho had awakened. He did not understand that humans need hope more than they need safety. And Dae-ho had given them hope. A military government took control. General officers who understood warfare began organizing the defense. Lieutenant Ji-woo Lee was rescued from her escape pod. When she was brought before the military council, they promoted her to captain. They gave her command of a task force. They told her to do what Captain Dae-ho had started: hurt the aliens, show them that humanity would not be conquered easily. Captain Ji-woo accepted the promotion with mixed feelings. She was honored, but she also felt the weight of responsibility. She had watched her mentor die. Now she had to continue his work. She had to find a way to defeat an enemy with technology thousands of years more advanced than human science. Dr. Hana Park became the chief scientific advisor to the military council. She was given unlimited resources and authority. Her job was simple: find ways to fight the aliens. She gathered the best scientists from across the solar system. They worked day and night, studying the data from the first battle. They analyzed the alien ship debris that had been recovered. They looked for any weakness they could exploit. Hana made a crucial discovery. The aliens had advanced so far beyond basic warfare that they had forgotten how to defend against simple tactics. Their shields were optimized for energy weapons. Their armor was designed to withstand exotic attacks. But they had minimal protection against kinetic weapons because they considered such weapons primitive and beneath them. This gave humanity an advantage. Humans could not match alien technology, but they could use weapons the aliens no longer respected. Railguns, missiles, even rocks accelerated to high speed could damage alien ships. The key was hitting them hard and fast before they could adapt their defenses. The asteroid belt became the center of human military production. Every available ship was converted into a weapon. Cargo haulers were fitted with railguns. Mining vessels were loaded with missiles. Colony transports became troop carriers. Nothing was wasted. Every resource went toward the war effort. Private Yuna Han had made her way to the belt after Captain Dae-ho's attack. She wanted to fight, not evacuate civilians. When Captain Ji-woo heard about the young Marine who had disobeyed orders to join the fight, she was impressed. She had Yuna brought to her flagship. Ji-woo recognized something in Yuna: a fire, a determination. She assigned Yuna to a special unit being formed for boarding actions. The idea was dangerous, but necessary. If humans could board damaged alien ships, they could learn about alien technology. They could steal weapons, gather intelligence, maybe even capture crew members for interrogation. Yuna volunteered immediately. She knew it was a suicide mission. Most boarding teams would not survive. But she did not care. She wanted to hurt the aliens who had threatened her species. Captain Ji-woo developed new tactics based on what she had learned from the first battle. The aliens fought with precision and computer-optimized strategies. Their tactics were perfect according to their calculations. But Ji-woo realized that perfection was a weakness. If the aliens relied on computer predictions, then doing something unpredictable would confuse them. She trained her commanders to be random, change speed without warning, alter course for no reason, break formation suddenly, use communications blackouts. do things that made no tactical sense. The goal was to be impossible to predict. If the alien computers could not predict human behavior, they could not optimize their responses. Hundreds of asteroids were converted into weapons. Each rock was fitted with simple engines and basic guidance systems. They were programmed to accelerate toward alien ships and explode on impact. The aliens could destroy them easily if they saw them coming. But if thousands of rocks attacked at once from multiple directions, some would get through. The preparations took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of frantic work. 3 weeks of turning the entire human economy toward war. Factories on Earth, Mars, and the Moon ran constantly. Ship construction yards that normally built cargo vessels now built warships. Everyone contributed. Even children helped by sorting materials and running supplies. During this time, the aliens remained beyond the belt observing. They were reassessing humanity. Their initial plan had been simple conquest, but now they knew humans would fight. They were studying human tactics. They were adapting their defenses against kinetic weapons. They were preparing for a real war, not a simple extermination. Then the aliens sent another message. This time there was no deadline, no ultimatum. Instead, they made a demonstration of power. They chose a target, Mars Colony Alpha. It was one of the largest settlements on Mars, home to 2 million people. The evacuation had not been completed. About half the colonists were still there, working to move equipment and supplies. The aliens attacked without warning. A single beam of energy from one of their battleships struck the colony. The beam was so powerful that it vaporized the entire settlement in seconds. 2 million people died instantly. They did not have time to scream. They did not have time to run. They were simply erased. After the attack, the aliens sent another message. They said this was the price of resistance. They could do the same to every human settlement. They could destroy Earth itself if they wished. They demanded immediate surrender. No more delays. No more defiance. Submit or be exterminated, one colony at a time. The aliens expected this demonstration to break human will. They expected panic. They expected surrender. They were wrong. The destruction of Mars Colony Alpha had the opposite effect. Instead of fear, it created rage. Instead of surrender, it created determination. Captain Jiwoo addressed the fleet after the attack. She told them that the aliens had made a mistake. They had shown that they would kill civilians without mercy. They had shown that surrender would not save anyone. If humans were going to die anyway, they might as well die fighting. At least then they would take aliens with them. Recruitment centers across the solar system were overwhelmed. Everyone wanted to fight. Old people, young people, anyone who could hold a weapon or operate a ship. The military could not process volunteers fast enough. Humanity had found something they had lost during centuries of peace. They had found their fighting spirit. Dr. Hana worked furiously on a new project. She was trying to develop a better understanding of alien shield technology. If humans could learn to penetrate those shields with energy weapons, it would give them more options in combat. The kinetic weapons worked, but they were limited. Energy weapons could be fired more quickly and accurately. They just needed to overcome the shields. Private Yuna trained with her boarding team. They practiced fighting in zero gravity. They learned how to breach alien hull materials. They studied what little was known about alien ship layouts. They knew their missions would be brutal. Most of them would die, but they trained anyway. They were ready to sacrifice everything. The aliens gave humanity 1 week to surrender after destroying Mars Colony Alpha. 1 week to accept their fate, but humanity did not spend that week preparing surrender documents. They spent it preparing for war, building weapons, training soldiers, planning attacks. When the week ended and no surrender came, the aliens advanced. Their fleet moved toward the inner solar system. They came slowly, cautiously. They had learned to respect human weapons, but they still believed they would win. They had overwhelming numbers and superior technology. How could primitives defeat them? They were about to find out. Captain Jiwoo had a plan. It was desperate and would cost many lives, but it might work, and in war, might was enough. Humanity was ready to fight the battle that would determine their future. Freedom or extinction. There was no middle ground. 12 hours remained before the surrender deadline. Captain Dae-ho Kim sat in his quarters aboard the Resilient Dawn, thinking about his life. He thought about his family on Earth, his wife, his 2 children. If he did what he was planning, he would never see them again. The thought made his heart ache. But he could not stand by and watch humanity become slaves. He called Lieutenant Ji-woo Lee to his quarters. When she arrived, he closed the door and spoke quietly. He told her that he was going to disobey orders. He was going to attack the aliens. He asked her if she understood what that meant. She nodded slowly. It meant certain death. It meant being labeled a traitor by the very people they were trying to save. But it also meant fighting back. It meant refusing to surrender without a fight. Ji-woo said she was with him. Whatever he needed, she would help. Dae-ho felt relief wash over him. He was not alone. Together, they began to contact other ship captains privately. They used encrypted channels that the Solar Defense Council could not monitor. They reached out to officers they knew and trusted. Officers who believed in fighting rather than surrendering. By the time 6 hours remained, Dae-ho had gathered 7 ships, 7 captains who were willing to risk everything. It was a tiny force, 7 small patrol ships against hundreds of massive alien vessels. But it was something. It was better than nothing. It was a start. Lieutenant Ji-woo had been studying the alien formations for weeks. She presented her analysis to Captain Dae-ho and the other rebel captains. She explained that the alien ships were positioned like they were in a parade, not a battle. They were spread out, maintaining ceremonial distances from each other. It showed incredible arrogance. The aliens did not believe humans would dare attack them. Dae-ho contacted Dr. Hana Park on the moon. At first, Hana was shocked that he was planning to attack. She told him it was suicide. But Dae-ho explained that he would rather die fighting than live as a slave. He asked her if there was any weakness in the alien ships, any vulnerability they could exploit. Hana studied her data for hours. Finally, she found something. The alien energy shields were incredibly advanced. They could absorb almost any energy weapon humans had. Lasers, plasma cannons, particle beams. Nothing would penetrate those shields. But Hana noticed something interesting. The shields were designed to handle energy, not matter. The aliens had advanced so far beyond kinetic weapons that they had optimized their defenses against energy attacks only. Kinetic weapons were simple. Bullets, missiles, rocks, anything physical traveling at high speed. Humans had used such weapons for thousands of years. To the aliens, these weapons were probably laughably primitive, but that might be their weakness. If the aliens thought kinetic weapons were too primitive to worry about, they might not have strong defenses against them. Dae-ho understood immediately. His ships had railguns, simple magnetic accelerators that threw chunks of metal at high speeds. They also had missiles with explosive warheads. These were weapons designed to fight pirates and small threats. Against alien energy shields, they would be useless. But if the shields were not designed to stop physical projectiles, maybe they had a chance. The 7 ships moved quietly into the asteroid belt. They loaded every railgun they had. They stripped ore from asteroids and fashioned crude projectiles. They armed every missile. They even attached guidance systems to large chunks of asteroid rock. They would throw everything they had at the aliens. Every piece of metal they could accelerate to high speed would become a weapon. Private Yuna Han heard rumors about what Captain Dae-ho was planning. Her transport ship was docked at a station near Mars. She could not stand the thought of just evacuating colonists while others fought. She asked her captain if she could volunteer for combat duty. Her captain said no. They had orders to stay out of the fight. But Yuna did not accept that answer. When her captain was not looking, she took a shuttle and flew toward where she knew the Resilient Dawn would be. As the deadline approached, the 7 rebel ships positioned themselves among the asteroids. They hid in the shadows of large rocks. They powered down their systems to minimal levels. They waited. Captain Dae-ho sent one final message to his wife on Earth. He told her he loved her. He told his children to be brave. He did not explain what he was about to do. He just said goodbye. The deadline arrived. The exact moment when humanity was supposed to surrender came and went. On Earth, Ambassador Sung-min was preparing to send the official surrender message. But before he could transmit it, something happened. The 7 ships emerged from the asteroid belt at full speed. They fired everything they had at the nearest alien vessels. Thousands of projectiles crossed the space between the human ships and the aliens. Chunks of metal, guided missiles, even raw pieces of asteroid ore. They traveled at incredible speeds. Some projectiles were moving at significant fractions of light speed. When something that heavy moves that fast, it carries enormous energy. The first impacts caught the aliens completely by surprise. Their energy shields activated automatically. But the shields were designed to dissipate energy beams, not stop physical matter. The projectiles punched through the shields like they were not even there. Metal struck alien hulls with devastating force. Explosions blossomed in the darkness of space. 3 alien cruisers were destroyed in the first salvo. Just completely destroyed. Blown apart by simple metal moving very fast. 4 more alien ships were heavily damaged. Parts of their hulls were torn open. Atmosphere vented into space. Fires burned inside the alien vessels. The aliens had never experienced this. In thousands of years of conquest, no primitive species had ever attacked them. No one had dared. And certainly no one had ever hurt them. But now, 7 tiny human ships had just destroyed or damaged 7 of their vessels. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. It was humiliating. The alien fleet broke formation. Ships that had been positioned for display suddenly scrambled to defensive positions. They powered up weapons that had been idle. They began targeting the human ships. The aliens were angry now. They would crush these insects who dared to resist, but the 7 ships did not run. They kept firing. They used the asteroids for cover, darting between rocks, making themselves hard to target. They fought with everything they had. Captain Deho was on the communication channel, coordinating the attack. His voice was calm and steady. He had accepted his death. Now he was making it count. The alien weapons were terrifyingly effective. When they hit a human ship, that ship simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. 2 of the 7 ships were destroyed in the first minute of the counterattack. But before they died, they fired one last salvo. 2 more alien vessels took damage. Lieutenant Jiwoo was at her station, feeding targeting data to the remaining ships. She worked faster than she had ever worked in her life. Every second counted. Every shot had to matter. She found weak points in the alien formations and directed fire toward them. Under her guidance, the human ships fought like a single organism. Another human ship exploded. Then another. Now only 3 remained. The Resilient Dawn was one of them. Captain Deho knew his time was running out. The aliens were adapting. They were adjusting their shields. Soon the kinetic weapons would not work anymore. But for now, for these precious minutes, humans were fighting back. They were showing the aliens that humanity would not surrender quietly. Then the Resilient Dawn took a hit. Not a direct hit, but close enough. The ship shuddered. Alarms screamed. Systems failed across multiple decks. Captain Deho looked at the damage reports. His ship was dying. He had minutes at most. He ordered all crew to abandon ship, get to the escape pods, survive to fight another day. Lieutenant Jiwoo refused to leave. She wanted to stay and fight to the end. But Deho made it an order. He told her that she was too valuable to lose. Someone needed to survive to tell the story. Someone needed to teach the next generation how to fight these aliens. Jiwoo argued, but Deho was firm. Finally, she obeyed. She went to an escape pod, tears streaming down her face. Captain Deho stayed on the bridge. He was alone now. His crew was safe, floating away in escape pods. His ship was dying around him. But he still had engines. He still had some control. And there was one alien vessel nearby, a big one, a battleship. He could reach it if he used all his remaining power. He aimed his dying ship at the alien battleship. He diverted all power to the engines. The Resilient Dawn accelerated. Faster and faster. The aliens saw what he was doing. They fired at him. Their weapons tore into his ship. But it was too late. He was too close and moving too fast. The Resilient Dawn struck the alien battleship at ramming speed. The impact was catastrophic. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire and debris. Captain Deho died instantly, but he took 1,000 aliens with him. His last act destroyed one of their most powerful vessels. From her escape pod, Lieutenant Jiwoo watched her captain die. She watched the explosion. She knew that humanity had just lost a great man, but she also knew that he had given them something precious. He had given them hope. He had shown that humans could hurt the aliens, that humans would fight, that humans would never surrender, The remaining human ships retreated. They had done all they could. In total, they had destroyed or damaged 20 alien vessels, 20 out of hundreds. It was not enough to win. Captain Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of his ship, the Resilient Dawn, and watched the stars. He had been a military officer for 15 years. In all that time, he had never seen anything like this. Nothing in his training had prepared him for what was happening now. The alien ships had arrived 3 weeks ago. They came out of nowhere, appearing at the edge of the solar system like ghosts. One moment, the space was empty. The next moment, hundreds of massive ships filled the darkness. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Some were the size of small cities. Daeho had been on patrol near the asteroid belt when the first reports came in. At first, he thought it was a mistake. Maybe someone had made an error with the sensors. But then he saw them with his own eyes. The alien vessels glowed with strange lights. They moved through space with impossible grace. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. For 3 weeks, the aliens did nothing. They just watched. Human ships tried to communicate with them. They sent messages in every language using every method they could think of. Radio waves, light signals, even mathematical patterns. The aliens received all the messages. Daeho knew they received them, because the sensors showed the alien ships responding to each transmission. But they never answered back. The waiting was driving everyone crazy. On Earth, people were scared. 12 billion people looked up at the sky and wondered what would happen. Would the aliens attack? Would they want to trade? Would they simply leave? Nobody knew. The not knowing was the worst part. Dr. Hannah Park worked at the Lunar Research Institute. She was one of the smartest scientists on the moon. For years, she had studied the possibility of alien life. Most people had laughed at her ideas. They said she was wasting her time. But now everyone wanted to hear what she had to say. Hannah spent every waking hour studying the alien ships. She analyzed the data that Captain Daeho and other officers sent back. She looked at the energy signatures from the alien vessels. What she found made her blood run cold. The technology was thousands of years ahead of human science. Maybe tens of thousands of years. The aliens could destroy humanity without effort. They could wipe out every human settlement in the solar system before anyone could blink. Lieutenant Jiwoo Lee was young, only 26 years old. She worked as the tactical officer on the Resilient Dawn. She was brilliant with numbers and patterns. While everyone else panicked, Jiwoo studied the alien formations. She noticed something strange. The alien ships were positioned in patterns that looked ceremonial, not military. They were spread out across the solar system like they were on display. It was the way a victor might position their forces, not an army preparing for battle. She told Captain Daeho what she had observed. He listened carefully. Daeho was a good captain because he listened to his crew. He asked her what she thought it meant. Jiwoo said she thought the aliens were so confident that they did not expect any resistance. They had positioned their ships for show, not for defense. On Earth, the politicians argued about what to do. Ambassador Sung Min Choi was the chief diplomat. He was a careful man who believed in talking, not fighting. He told the world leaders that they should prepare to negotiate. Fighting such advanced aliens would be suicide. Better to surrender and hope for mercy. Many people agreed with him. The Solar Defense Fleet was not built for war. The ships were designed to stop pirates and rescue stranded vessels. They had weapons, but nothing that could challenge an advanced alien force. The fleet had maybe 200 combat-capable ships. The aliens had hundreds of vessels, each one more powerful than anything in the human arsenal. Private Yuna Han was a Marine stationed on a colony transport ship. She was young and had joined the military to see the solar system. She never expected to actually fight anyone. Most of her job involved loading cargo and doing maintenance. But when the aliens arrived, everything changed. Her transport ship was ordered to help evacuate the Mars colonies. The government wanted to move people to safer locations just in case. Yuna saw the fear in the colonists' eyes. She saw families packing whatever they could carry. She saw children crying because they did not understand what was happening. She saw old people who had spent their whole lives building homes on Mars, now forced to leave everything behind. It made her angry. These were good people. They did not deserve this fear. Then, on the 21st day after the aliens arrived, everything changed. A message came through on every communication device in the solar system. Televisions, computers, phones, even the displays in ships and space stations. The message appeared everywhere at once. The message was in perfect English, Chinese, Spanish, Hindi, Arabic, and dozens of other human languages. The aliens spoke with one voice, translated perfectly for every listener. The voice was neither male nor female. It was calm and cold. The message was simple. Humanity had 72 hours to surrender. All military ships must disable their weapons. All colonies beyond Earth must be evacuated. Humans would be relocated to specific zones on Earth. The aliens would supervise humanity from that point forward. The message said this was not negotiable. If humans refused, they would be exterminated. Every man, woman, and child. The entire species would be erased. Then the message ended. The aliens went back to their silent watching. The countdown had begun. Captain Day-Ho felt sick. He looked around his bridge. His crew stared at their screens in shock. 72 hours, 3 days to decide the fate of the human race. Surrender and become slaves, or refuse and face extinction. On the moon, Dr. Hana sat in her laboratory with tears running down her face. She had spent her life dreaming of meeting aliens. She had imagined peaceful contact, sharing knowledge, learning about the universe together. This was nothing like her dreams. This was a nightmare. Ambassador Sung-min immediately called an emergency meeting of the Solar Defense Council. He argued that humanity must accept the terms. There was no choice. Fighting would only lead to death. If humans surrendered, at least they would live. Maybe in the future things could change. Maybe they could negotiate better terms later. But for now, survival was all that mattered. Most of the council agreed with him. Orders went out to all military vessels. Stand down. Do not engage the aliens. Prepare for surrender. Some officers protested, but they were told to follow orders or face court-martial. Captain Day-Ho received the orders. He read them 3 times. Stand down, surrender, accept defeat without fighting. He looked at Lieutenant Jiwoo. She looked back at him with anger in her eyes. She did not want to surrender either. Private Yuna Han heard the announcement on her transport ship. The captain told all the crew that they would comply with the surrender order. Yuna felt something break inside her. Her whole life she had been told that humans were brave, that they never gave up, that they faced their problems with courage. But now, when it mattered most, they were going to surrender without even trying. The hours ticked by. 60 hours left, then 50, then 40. Humanity prepared to give up its freedom. The aliens waited in silence, confident in their victory. They had done this before many times. They knew how it would end. Every species eventually surrendered. Humans would be no different. But the aliens did not know humans very well. They did not understand what happens when you back humans into a corner. They did not understand that some humans would rather die free than live as slaves. They were about to learn a very painful lesson. As the countdown continued, Captain Day-Ho made a decision. It was a decision that would change everything. He could not just surrender. He would not. Even if it meant his death, he would show the aliens that humans were not cattle. He would show them that humans fight. The waiting was almost over. Soon, the invaders of Earth would learn what humanity was really made of.